Okay, so the second thing we did was that we learned about what a rhymed verse is. We figured out what a rhymed verse is through the reading of Canterbury Tables. Now, note down the fourth thing that happens in language. In under Anglo Normans, um, it was the verse VRC that was preferred, a preferred medium of exchange. Verse was preferred as a means of writing, as a medium of communication over prose. Prose means any simple language, comes from the word prosaic. Prosaic comes from the word, prosaic means simple. Simple language was replaced, and what was preferred over it? The verse form was preferred. So previously it was the prose form that was preferred. Do you see a lot of writings coming from Romans and these philosophies being translated by King Alfred himself? So that kind of prose, you do not find a lot of prose under Anglo Normans. What you mostly find is poetry. Okay, this is the other change that occurs. But the literature produced between early 12th century and late 15th century is important in respect that it is an heir of, it continues to take onwards the Anglo-Saxon tradition. Means you still find the roots of Anglo-Saxon writing in this century, despite the fact that Anglo-Normans came in 1066. Okay, the tradition continues to be Anglo-Saxon roots continue to be seen in 12th to 15th century. Then what you see happens in Anglo-Norman tradition doesn't make much of a change during this period on language and literature. And in this period also, France did not just dominate its colonies, but the whole of Europe was under the influence of France at this time. Normans were very strong during this period. And it was also significant that the conquest itself was started by William, who later on came to be known as William the Conqueror.
Conqueror.
Yeah. Why the Conqueror? Because he happened to conquer a lot of Europe, major chunk of Europe, therefore he's called William the Conqueror. Now let's come to what happens in Middle English literature. This was about language, and now we are dealing with literature. What happens to the literature in this time? In this the literature of this time, you mostly find what figures out in all these texts is one thing, which is called Arthurian legends, are very important to these texts. What are these Arthurian legends? These are legendary stories that are based on King Arthur winning over the pagans. The pagans are represented the pagans are represented by the figures that are coming to attack their nation. The nation is under attack of Britons, and it's King Arthur who is trying to save them. So King Arthur becomes the hero, and the antagonist is any pagan who is trying to attack the kingdom. King Arthur is himself a Christian who is trying to safeguard the country from paganistic influences. The first such tradition that you find was recorded by a man. His name was Vase. He had written a tradition like that. It is titled, this is a very important text, it's called Roman de Brut. Roman de Brut. And this was something that existed there before, but it wasn't read that much since it wasn't in their language. Roman the Brute tells you that this is more in the language tradition that is not English, but then it was translated in 13th century by a man called Lyman. Lyman titled his text, gave a new title to the text, he only called it Brute. So it's referred to as Lyman's Brute. This Lyman's Brute became a very important text with regard to Arthurian legends. So what did Lyman do in this text? What did he do in this was 13th century? So you still know what kind of literature is being written in this time. It's in verse form, and not much of it is alliterative, but most of it is in rhymed verses, right? So then, what does Lyman do with this brute? What you see in Lyman's brute is that he merges the two ideas. He merges the native alliteration, which was the tradition in the Anglo-Saxons. He merges this native alliterative tradition without using the new rhyme. Without using a rhyme verse, which was actually an influence that had come from France. And this time, French people were the ones who were trying to colonize the nation. The nation was again under attack. So Roman the Brute was basically, Weiss is a French writer. This is pronounced differently by different people. He's a French and the text is French. This the word must tell you that it's a French text. Roman means a story. Roman means a story in French language. Roman the Brute, the story of the Britons. And he writes, Lyman writes, Brute, a new text like the colonized writing his own story, using his native tradition of alliteration, using his native tradition of no rhyme. No rhyme. So from this synthesis of the two things, what he does in the new tradition, this merging of the two different tradition, and also taking the text from the one from French people themselves. What he does in this text is that from this synthesis comes the choice to write about King Arthur. So in Lyman's Brute, now France will not tell their story making a king, making the hero out of a foreign tradition. He won't be a hero. So in here, King Arthur becomes the hero. So Lyman's Brute becomes important because he is the first one to give King Arthur a name in the tradition of heroic deeds. And this is where from Arthurian legends begin. Though we already had these Arthurian legends were already there. Other people had already written and given this King Arthur the figure of a hero, the shape of a hero, and within many traditions along with that. But this text becomes important in this time period. Lyman's Brute is important for this century. This is around 1200s to 1299. This is the time when French people are making a lot of influence on the people. What are they doing? They have also given a written law. Law wasn't so far written. It's written during this period. It's the French colonizers in England doing that. Law is being written. So when such changes are coming, so this has a different influence. This Arthurian tradition has an altogether different influence than the other Arthurian legends had before this. Now coming back to the Arthurian legends. In these Arthurian legends, you find that there is the main hero who is King Arthur. There is um, one critic. His name is Jean Baudel. In French, it's pronounced as Jean Baudel. Jean Baudel. In French, it's Jean Baudel. In English, the British pronunciation is Jean Baudel. He called it, wherever these stories had legends written around King Arthur, he called it Matter of England or Matter of Britain. And in other places, there was a distinct feature in stories where the major hero wasn't Arthur, but he was Alexander, or Alexander, as they call him. These stories come from Rome, so he calls it Matter of Rome. And the third one were the stories that were written around the character Charlemagne. Charlemagne and Roland. These stories came from France itself. And Jean Baudel calls it Matter of France. So these are the heroes and these are the places where you find similar stories being written around similar legends. But for us, the only legend that becomes important is Arthurian legend, nor Alexander, nor Charlemagne and Roland. But for you to remember, these are the names associated with France, Rome, Britain. Arthur, Alexander, Charlemagne and Roland. This was done by a critic, Jean Baudel. He makes use of, I put this in inverted commas because this is the term, these phrases are used by Jean Baudel. That's why I put this in inverted commas. Okay. Now back to Arthur. The first tale we'll do from this Middle English literature, though this is not important, if you don't need to go into it, I'll just give you the name of this tradition. The first one, and this text is called Sir Gwen and the Green Knight. If you are interested, you can go through the story on YouTube, watch any movie on Sir Gwen and the Green Knight, and try to find out how does King Arthur figure in this story, and what is the Arthur's round table. Arthur's round table, it's believed that King Arthur had all the characteristics that a man, a gentleman, a warrior, a king should have. These are 24 characters. 24 characteristics. It's like in Hinduism they believe in 36 gun. In English tradition they believe there are 24 characteristics important for a king. And King Arthur in his round table had 12 members. These 12 important nobles for him only bore one character each. One character each. They were only good at something, one of these 24 good characteristics that King Arthur had. So therefore he was the king because he had double the characteristics than the round table had. Each one of them had one. And King Arthur, so 12 total, there were 12 characteristics in each member in the round table. And he himself had all the characteristics, 24. There are many names that will figure in the coming stories that are basically the 12 members of the round table, like the name, I forgot the name, Lancelot. Yeah. Lancelot. He was one of the members of the round table and many other. So that's about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Figure out why was he called Green Knight? Why is Sir Gawain important? How is it different? The tale is different from Beowulf. Now, leaving that aside, let's come to Chaucer. All this is not very important for you. Your story basically begins with Chaucer. Now, you will also find that these Arthurian legends are there even in Chaucer's tales. Now, we are coming to Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So, the basic story is that these people are going on a pilgrimage. Uh, some people are going on a pilgrimage. I'm giving you the summary of the story. And this pilgrimage is to a place called Saint Thomas A.
Beg.
Beckett's. So they are going to this the shrine of the Saint Thomas A. Becket, and they have to pay a visit because it's a religious pilgrimage. So they start their journey and they have to assemble together in a place. This place is called Tabard Inn. Inn. You must have seen this in these days in Vartrul. That's Sarai. Sarai is exactly an inn, a staying place. So they all are supposed to assemble together in a tabard inn before they begin on the journey. The host of the tabard inn is important character. So what the host decides is that he says when we start our journey to make it interesting, each one of us will tell a tale when they go from one side, and when they come back we'll say each one of us will narrate another tale, so it becomes two tales each, and the best of these tales will in the end be rewarded. The best of these tales in the end will be rewarded. The one who tells the best tale will be rewarded. The reward is a free meal, that person will get a free meal from all of us, the host says, in this tabard inn when we are back. Okay, that's basically the gist of the story. The rest of it is how does the narrator work as an anchor who holds together all the stories. Do you know what an anchor means? An anchor, the one that holds the ship or a boat to the land. It's called an anchor. An anchor works like an anchor who holds together all the stories under one tapestry or under one umbrella. Okay, this is why he's called an anchor. So what are these different parts that he will put together? These are all the tales that are going to be narrated through the pilgrimage. The word for pilgrimage used in the first part is pilgrimages, right? It happens that Chaucer did plan to write all the tales that these people who are said to be 29 in number, that these 29 people will say all the tales, and that would be 29 into 2, but that doesn't, he is not able to realize that plan. And we do not have these many tales in the text, we have only a few. And in that text, Chaucer himself figures. Chaucer is the narrator in the text. Okay? Chaucer is the narrator in the text. He's not the host, he's the narrator. The narrator who begins to tell you one that April. He is the narrator, he is Chaucer himself. So let's go to the first reading of the text.
Hey, loving chivalry here. Here beginneth the walk of the towers of Canterbury. One that April, with his surest sorter, the truth of March hath pierced to the rotor, and bar the depth.
The question here arises, who is saying this? If this is going to be a pilgrimage, they are going to go to a tabardin. Who is telling you that this is the time of April when it's showers, when you are enjoying the showers of April and March has passed by? We have left behind March, and these April rains are giving life to every part. And what Zephyrus is doing to everything around, what is happening to the nature. And then What is he talking about?
Every vine in switchly goor, of which virtue engendered is the floor. One Zephyrus egg, with his sway to breath, in spirit hath in every hort and heath the tender croppus, and the younge sonne hath in the ram his halve course he runne, and smaller fools maken melodie that sleep.
So he also says that this is the period when small fowls are born and they are making sweet, melodious voices. So he's describing the atmosphere of that time when the pilgrimage will start. This is only an expression of what the nature is like, what the atmosphere at that time is like.
All the nicht, with open ear, so pricketh the nature in her courages. Then longen folk to go on pilgrimages, and palmers for to saken strangers stranders to ferna halways good in sundry landes. And specially from every sheerest end of England to Canterbury thy wender, the
So he says it's that time, dawn here, dawn longan folk to goon on pilgrimages. It's that time of the year when a group of folk go on pilgrimage. They come from every side. I'm only summarizing it because this is not the text that I have to deal with. Your poetry teacher will deal with this. It's this time when from England to Canterbury they went from England to Canterbury in this time. I'll only tell you the basic lines of this text so that this becomes clear for you and so that you are also familiar with the language of the time because you will be doing Canterbury Tales in not in original with your other teacher. He will be teaching in modern English.
holy blissful martyr for to sake, that am a forward, one that I forsake.
So they are going to seek the help of that blissful martyr, holy blissful martyr. There's a holy blissful martyr, and they are going to seek his help. And this is what they are going to seek. This is what they are going there for. They're going to seek the help of the holy blissful martyr. 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 Martyr means shaheed.
Me feel that in that saison on a day, in Southwark at the tabard as he lay, ready to wenden on me pilgrimage to Canterbury with full devout courage. At nicht was coming to that hostelry, well 29 in a company of sundry folk.
So he says it was a folk that had 29 people in it, well, 9 and 20 in compare. They come together at night to this Southwark tabard. And this I here as I lay, though this is not pronounced that way in Anglo-Saxon Middle English language, but he says in Southwark at Tabardin as I lay, I. This I tells you that this is a figure. Some figure is saying I am in Tabard Inn, ready to wend in on my pilgrimage. I am also ready to go to my pilgrimage. So this is a speaker, narrator telling you the whole tale, who we now read as Chaucer himself. And they are with full devout courage that these 9 and 20 people.
Tory follow in fellowship, and pilgrims were they alle that toward Canterbury Walden read. The chambers and the stables were in weed, and well we were in airsed at a best. And shortly, when the sun was to rest, so had he spoken with him every John, that he was of your fellowship anon, and made forward early for Teresa to talk our way, there is you devise. But natheless.
So he says, in the night we happened to devise a plan. How will the pilgrimage go? We devised a plan. How will the pilgrimage go?
Will ye have team and space, ere that he further in this tale passe? May thinketh it accordant to reason, to tell you all the condition of age of him, so as it seem it may, and which they weren, and of what degree, and eke in what array that they were in.
So he says, before the pilgrimage begins, while everybody is sleeping, I still have time and space for you to tell, before the tales begin, for you to tell, to give you a brief about each one of them, how they look, how they seemed, how they appeared, in what degree, and also tell you that in what array that they were in, what they were wearing, what kind of people these were. And he says, I will begin with the knight, who is the first one, first character that I'll tell you how he is. Now, what you have in your syllabus is only the definition, only the first part, which is the prologue, which is the prologue means the first part, the introduction part, introduction to Canterbury Tales. So you don't have any tale in your syllabus. Sorry, in your syllabus in poetry. All you have is that you have to study the basic introduction to all these characters. What is this knight going to do? What does he look like? Okay, so this will be done by the teacher, but in my class you will have to give me presentation on various tales. Okay, so let me share the work.